Welcome to welcome back to Relationship Runback. I'm Aaron, and let's run it back. I think I just pause here once another time again because of the name. Let's run it back. We all get a chance. God gives us that chance to make mistakes, to learn from them, and we get an opportunity to run it back. If you ever played sports, you ever played board games, you're competitive. You lose, and you think, man, I should have done this. So that's why I say let's run it back. We all have that opportunity. Today, my guest is Tania Ramirez. She's a real estate agent, single mother. And before we get to you, Tania, I just want to say that if you're listening to this podcast or viewing, you came in and clicked on this show, there's a reason. There is a reason that I'm here doing this. And this month's theme seems to be single moms and women, because all my guests are women this month, and that's okay. And I want to explore that topic because they're struggling right now, and men. I want to help men understand that and understand what it's like and how to be a better man in the way God's aligned uh, relationships to be in marriage. So I'm okay with all women guests. Tania Ramirez, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Aaron.
So we're here today. You're a single mom. You've been single for how long?
When 33, when I turned 33,
Okay,
I got
okay.
divorced. Yeah.
Give me a little background about your divorce and how that went.
Well, I'm gonna go before that. I
Sure.
was already a single mom. I had my daughter when I was 17 years old,
Okay.
almost 18. So
Okay.
right there, I was already a single mom.
Yeah.
Before I was even an adult, I was still a child.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got married when I was 23
Mm-hmm.
with the father of my two sons.
Okay.
And then, my daughter's dad was completely, he was always out of the picture,
Okay.
um, and was married for 10 years. And when we got divorced, he basically, disappeared.
Mm-hmm.
So I have full custody of my kids since they're little.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we never saw him again or spoke to him again. So
Wow.
I basically have been,
Yeah.
a single mom 100%.
Wow. That's incredible. Now I want to go back to when you said you were 17.
Hmm.
So what I've been noticing um, in a lot of young women's journeys, especially in the Hispanic community, is the generational trauma that's been passed down. So what was it like? Who were your role models that taught you or said it was okay to get pregnant at 17 or
Well, my family wasn't like that. There were
mm,
actually the opposite, very, very,
okay,
very, very strict.
okay,
And, my parents are still married. They're very traditional.
okay,
What happened in my case was that uh, I have, we came here when we were little. We're immigrants to this country.
okay,
There were things that happened in my personal life that kind of, I
mm,
guess, I was going through as a child, as a teenager,
okay,
that I feel put me in a more vulnerable kind of state.
okay,
My parents, my dad was, and my brother were very, very strict. I have two brothers. I'm the only girl, so I
okay,
was very sheltered and
mm,
overprotected.
yeah,
Things happen within the family that I kind of, I wanted to go to college. I didn't want to have, kids. It wasn't
mm,
even in my plans. And, me being 15, 16 years old, like, I feel that, I think my parents had separated at that time. So I
mm,
felt like I
okay,
needed to do something to kind of like get them back together and like get their attention, which
mm,
I did it in a bad way by, being a little rebel and
yeah,
just, it was a negative way, to
yeah,
get
to
your
get them
parents'
together.
attention.
Okay,
So that's how I ended up, pretty much in that
okay.
in that situation. My parents were not happy at all. My dad or, nobody in my family.
So you thought by getting pregnant, you'd bring a grandchild into the world and well, hey, her mom, dad, you gotta get back together now, or
I think if I caused the problem,
Oh,
then that would make my parents get back together, which
interesting.
they did.
Okay. They
But
did?
yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay.
because now the attention went on, went on me.
Oh, okay. So your plan worked.
Yeah, I guess it did. But I'm like, why, the way a 15-year-old, 16-year-old person thinks.
Yeah, yeah. Interesting. Okay, so then you got married 4 years later,
Yes.
right? Okay. Tell me about your marriage in those 10 years. Who were you? Did you look up to say, oh, this is what a wife's supposed to be. This is what a husband's supposed to be. This is how a marriage is supposed to be.
I think that, again, being like my parents are very traditional, but also they are very, old school, and being Hispanic, there's a lot of things that we don't talk about at home.
Mm,
Um, Today, I understand like my parents did the best they could
yeah,
for what they had, but it wasn't like we had conversations about those things,
yeah.
you know? So most of, my grandmother, her husband died, so she was a single mom to 5 kids. So to
Okay,
me, she was a very strong, hardworking woman.
okay.
And yeah, I feel that I think that I got married because there's a stigma also in the Hispanic community
Mm,
that if you're a single mom, like your value as a woman decreases, or you're not as valuable to a
okay.
man if you have someone else's kid, all those
Yeah,
things.
yeah. Cultural influence.
So I think that that kind of affected me,
Okay,
my what I thought like my self-worth was.
right.
And I mean, the thing that I did know, as since being a little girl, I can remember like being 3 or 4, I wanted to be a mother. Like I was already playing dolls, and I was already,
Hmm.
putting something under my pajamas, thinking I was pregnant. I
Right.
used to say I'm gonna have 10 kids.
Yeah.
I was always very motherly, and what I did know is that I wanted a husband. I wanted to be a wife.
Mm,
Um,
okay.
that I did know that, and I think, when I got married, apparently, the person that I met was going to be able to offer me what I thought I wanted, which was a family
Yeah.
and, you know, the role of a father to my daughter.
Understand. Understand.
So I kind of said, well, this is what I always wanted.
Right.
Hmm.
Did you get any premarital counseling back then? Did you get
No,
any? That's not part of our culture, right? We don't. No
no.
one does that. Did you have a big wedding?
Um, I mean, yeah,
Okay.
kind of. I mean, and same thing. Like my dad, my parents were not happy at all. And
Mm,
also, even if I had my daughter, they were still very strict with me. So as a 22, 21,
mm-hmm.
23-year-old girl, I couldn't go overnight on weekends.
Even though you had a kid.
Yes. So
Okay.
then in my head again, well, that would solve that problem. I'm not going to have to ask permission if I'm married
So,
to be,
so
like the logical way of thinking, like,
yeah. No. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
illogical.
Yeah.
So
No.
it
It's
wasn't like the right reasons.
yeah. Understood. Understood. Yeah. And that's again. That's just the cultural influence on you, the human experience, and like in that age, it's pressure, right? It's a lot of pressure from your mom and dad, and wanting to do what you want to do. I get it, and we get married for the wrong reasons. Like I said, you had a baby to get your parents back together, or to take the attention off them and bring it on you, and then you got married so you wouldn't be able to. They wouldn't be able to tell you what to do.
Yes, to be free, to be out of the house.
To be free, to be out of the house, and I think that's common. That's a common theme in the Hispanic culture, and maybe in other cultures too, because that that pressure from the family can be tremendous. And you don't want to be the black sheep. And for my family, it was more of drinking. When you drank, when the family had a party, you joined everybody. You drank, you came in. Why isn't there a beer in your hand? Here's another one real quick. Down that one. Here's another one. And you don't want to be the odd person out. So no, I'm not gonna drink today because they look at you like, who's this guy over here?
Uh-huh.
Like so. It's the same cultural pressure, but with you, it became part of who you were, your identity, and getting married, having to be independent. and to really not be able to just say no, but you had to do these things to get out of the house.
Yes. And
Yeah.
I mean, my parents, I'm in my 40s and they're still, it's like they still want to treat me like I'm 17 most of the time.
Oh, okay. How do you combat that? How do you?
It's been a struggle. I have to realize they're not going to change. And it's not
Mm,
only that, it's again, two brothers and now my sons, who grew up watching that kind of now are also very overprotective of
oh,
me.
okay,
So I
okay.
always kind of have to kind of like put my foot down,
Yeah,
you know what I mean, and not react.
understood.
I
Yeah.
have to always remind myself like and be strong because sometimes it does affect me. Like obviously, if I made someone unhappy or
Mm,
someone in my family is gonna tell me something, like it
mm,
just that it does bring me down.
right.
Because I feel like they expect me to be a certain way and to behave a certain way.
Mm. And if you don't, they give you the side eye, or they is there
Yes.
any guilt or shame that you carry from that?
Um. Well, yes. Sometimes I feel guilty.
Mm-hmm.
I guess because again, they still expect me to behave a certain way and do
Yeah.
certain things. And when I do things that, in their eyes is not right,
Right.
my sense, I do feel, yeah, I guess guilty sometimes.
Do you feel that if you were married and had a husband now, that they would back off?
Oh yeah, and I see it all
Oh,
the time because my
okay.
all my friends or most of them are married, and it's almost like they can go. I mean, they don't have the spotlight or the eyes on them
Mm,
because they're
uh-huh.
with their husbands.
Got it.
But
Got
me
it.
as a single mom, as a single woman, like
You need to
there's
be watched. You need to be
yes,
watched
like
over.
all eyes on me.
Yeah.
If I was with a husband, or had a man, I feel like my parents would be like, "Oh, someone's taking care of her,"
Yeah.
like.
Got it. Got it. So let's go back to your marriage of 10 years. What are some of the challenges you faced early on? Like, what did you notice anything that was challenging early on in the marriage, or that stuff that you put up with that you wouldn't put up with now?
Um. Yes, I mean, he was a very. I mean, obviously he had qualities
Mm-hmm.
that I liked,
Right.
but he also came. I mean, from parents that were very strict and even more like I feel like the women don't have a voice, like our opinion didn't matter. We
Mm,
weren't allowed to you make decisions.
right.
So he always kind of treated me like that.
Okay.
So I felt then that I'm like, oh my god, I just left from a father to
Right.
be treated like not like you're my father.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like giving me
Exactly.
permission for things, taking my phone away because if you didn't like how I behaved,
Oh wow.
very very controlling in every aspect. Like since the beginning, like even like choosing my wedding gown. I feel like that moment that was supposed to be
Yeah.
an unforgettable moment or a special
Right.
moment, he took it
He
away.
took it away. Yeah.
Like so he was very like that, very very controlling and possessive.
So, as you said, you saw that early on, like choosing your wedding dress. So when you saw that, did you say like, "Oh, maybe I shouldn't do this," or were you like, just, just ignoring it, or 'cause that's like a red flag, right? That's like, hey, if you look back now, like, "Oh wait, maybe I shouldn't have done that." But how'd you feel at that moment?
I think now I know to see, to when I see a red flag,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean, when it's there, and I know how now like to pay attention to my intuition or like a gut
Mm-hmm.
feeling.
Yeah.
I feel like I was very young,
Yeah.
and even though I saw those things
Mm-hmm.
and a little temper, that he had,
Yeah.
like I still went through the marriage.
Yeah.
We lived in Mexico City at that time, but I feel inside my heart like I knew I couldn't stay there.
Mm.
I knew I'm like I shouldn't. I didn't see myself there, and I knew I just had a bad feeling like I cannot stay living here because what am I gonna do?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not gonna be able to work, even though you can. But again, you're in Mexico, and I was still under the control of his family. So
Mm.
I said I need to go back to this, to the states.
Yeah.
just in case my family's over there. If something happens, I'm able to do something with my life,
Yeah.
and that's what happened.
How did he take that?
Um, I mean, surprisingly, he agreed to move here.
Okay.
So we moved back. I was over there 3 years only.
Okay. So 3 years married in Mexico City,
Uh-huh.
and then you came back. And was there an improvement? Did he change his mannerisms, or did he was the same person?
No, and I think little by little, because there's people that out there that thrive or go for certain people like myself. Like I'm, very. I'm an empath. I'm also very caring and
Mm-hmm.
very like I give people chances. So with little by little, I feel like I was letting myself be controlled
Mm.
to where I had changed. Like I was like, who am I? Like I couldn't make a decision without. Oh, let me ask him. Oh, let me ask him. And I just feel like let it happen because he would, be kind of like he has a narcissistic personality
Mm-hmm.
with a lot of manipulation. So
Mm.
just a lot of mind games at that point.
You said something very interesting there. That again, it's a common theme is who am I? Because when you give yourself to someone in that way and you totally enmesh and are dependent, you become codependent eventually, little by little, and you are in that relationship and you can't make a decision without that person, you lose your identity. And that's what a lot of women who have been married for so long in bad relationships, staying and staying and staying and hoping they can change the person or that he'll treat me better or he loves me because he does this. When they get out of it, they don't know who they are anymore.
Yeah, I mean, like his way of control was obviously the finances, like
Mm-hmm.
full control of the finances. I couldn't even open an envelope, so I had no clue what was going on in the household. Not because I didn't want to. I would ask, and you know, he wouldn't want that.
Yeah.
And I tried, when I and now I had, my boys.
Mm-hmm.
So me saying I'm not gonna fail again. I already failed once. I'm not gonna be a single mom twice.
Mm.
By two different fathers. I'm not
Yeah.
gonna do that. That's embarrassing.
Yeah.
My my parents are still married. We got married through the Catholic Church.
Mm.
So now I already made my decision and I have to suck it up. And my kids are not going, I'm not going to put my kids through, being without a father or like a divorce or things like
Okay.
that. So that kind of made me stay way longer than I should have.
Got it.
But when as my kids were growing, I wanted to get a little bit more independent and like, try to work part time or do this. And I feel like he would always somehow ruin it. So then I would have to quit.
Mm.
He would always make it not work.
Mm.
He always made me feel like my job is not like it's not important. And he would always make it to where it was almost impossible for me to continue.
Mm.
So
What would he do?
just make it, the kids were little, like
Okay.
not help me with the kids, even if it was 3 hours.
Mm.
Um, yeah, like just make it impossible for me to
Yeah.
be able to sustain a job.
Yeah. Just work against you
Yeah,
instead of work with you.
yeah, because I see he didn't want me to be out there. He didn't want me to talk to other people, have
Yeah.
friends, have a life, or be a little independent.
Right.
He wanted to have me right here at all costs.
Yeah. And what I want to say something here. I'm not doing this podcast to shame you or to say, hey, that was your fault, and not at all. Because again, we all have made decisions that impact or relationships or we stay too long or for different reasons, and we all have different reasons for the kids or I don't look bad for divorce. So again, I'm not here to shame you or say
Hmm.
that was that bad of you. That's what that was your human experience, and that's what was going on in your life. And I've been there certainly, and I know a lot of the audience members have probably that resonate with them about just staying.
Yeah, and at that time too, like my kids were very small,
Mm-hmm.
so I knew I was gonna have a hard time.
Mm.
So I almost had to wait until they grew a little bit until they went to school because, I mean, things started getting like very violent,
Oh,
like
okay.
physically violent. There was a
Okay.
lot of different types of abuse
Okay.
that I endured and kept secret. Again, I was embarrassed.
Yeah.
And I knew if I told my brother or my dad, like my dad would run there and like kick his
Whoop
ass.
his ass.
And I didn't want my dad,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that. Unfortunately, sometimes or most of the time, a lot of people don't understand what it is to be a victim of any source
Mm-hmm.
because your logic, you always say, why didn't she just leave? Or people that get
Mm-hmm.
abducted and then they live with a person and they have
Mm-hmm.
opportunities to run and they
Yeah.
don't. Unfortunately, the way they manipulate your mind,
Mm-hmm.
then you either get used to it or you think that's normal, or
Yes.
you
Yes.
protect them.
Yes.
You feel sorry for them when they cry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so sorry. It's not going to happen again. So that went on for a long time until, I did try to leave a few times and I didn't, or he would come and get me again. Um, and mostly because my kids were little and I'm like, I don't have a job. I don't have money. Like, where
Right.
am I going to go? How am I going to work if my kids are
Yeah.
little? I felt stuck.
Yeah.
So, and I knew it wasn't going to be an easy thing to do. And I don't know, until it would just be like, you eventually do get tired, thank God, that I said, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
God doesn't want this for me. He didn't, we got married through the church. We went to retreats, marital retreats,
Mm.
but nothing fixed it, like he was very used in his own way of being controlling, demanding, abusive. And, his father was the same way. I tried to ask his family for help, and they supported him. So I really had no
Wow.
help, someone that can help me save that
Yeah.
marriage. And I stayed again way longer, maybe that I should have.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, I was like, how long are we going to be good? A month or 2 months? Like
Mm.
it started like it was just a roller coaster. And I was like, I don't even see myself ending the year. I don't even see myself growing with this person.
Yeah.
It was just living in like survival mode at home,
Yeah.
till something again, like set him off and
Back to his old habits. Back to his old
set him
ways.
and
Yeah.
bad things would happen at
Yeah.
home. And also, I didn't want my sons or my daughter
Mm-hmm.
to for my daughter, I didn't want her to think that's acceptable for a man to treat her that way.
Mm-hmm.
For my sons, I didn't want them to be that type of man. That was my
Yeah.
final straw when I said, my kids, like, it ends here, you know
It ends here.
I didn't experience that at home with my parents. My dad is not abusive, was never abusive, that kind of violence.
Mm-hmm.
um so it was more I don't know if maybe he did. So it's because it's all, it's a
Right.
repeated cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But he didn't want to fix it, or get help. And I
Yeah.
think it's true, when you let someone do something to you, it's only going to happen again.
Yeah.
So at that point, when I said, I'm done, like, my kids are not going to grow up
Mm-hmm.
and see that.
Yeah. Wow. I'm proud of you for saying that, for getting to
Thank
that point.
you.
Proud of you.
Thank you. For years, I mean, only my close friends or my close circle or people that I really trust,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, know really a lot of my story or that part of my story.
Yeah.
Because as an independent or, self-employed or whatever image we have to portray to society,
Mm-hmm.
it's embarrassing. You don't want to say, hey, I came from domestic violence or I was abused. Like, you don't want to say that. For me, it was shameful and embarrassing
Right.
until now
Yeah.
that I said I have to say, I can't hide it. I mean, it's part of my story and who I am.
Right. Absolutely. And I want to pause here and say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing it, because this is going to reach people who need to hear this. They need to hear that people can survive. They need to hear that what they're in is not okay and that they can get out. And I got to also say that makes me think of I have a daughter, 21-year-old daughter, And as I'm hearing you describe that you had no help and there was, you were stuck and the economics of it, and I couldn't help but think of my daughter, like, man, we got to do better. We have to be leaders. We have to resolve our trauma, um, treat ourselves, approach marriage and relationships in a different manner than the machismo way and the way our past generations have done it. It doesn't work. It doesn't work, and it causes trauma in our women. So that's why I'm here into this podcast. That's why I'm here. My mission is to be a role model for healthy marriages, healthy relationships, and help those men who need help, who come from, like you said, he might have experienced domestic violence himself.
Mhm.
He might have experienced physical abuse. He might have seen his family abuse each other, um, and we can heal from that. And the way to do that is with Jesus Christ and God and His love. Um, that's right. All right, let's get back to you
Yeah.
now. That I want to just say that and get that out there, because if you're listening to this today, there's a reason why, and we can turn it around. We don't have to go down that path. We can turn it around. Now, the so you're out of the marriage. Let's get past that. You're out of that marriage. You're a single mom at 33. How are you feeling?
At that point, I felt um, really, I would say I had a big drive. I had a big, um, I mean, because when that all happened, I didn't even have a job, but I said, I don't know how, but I'll have a
Mm,
job in 30 days. And I did what I had to do, rented rooms in my house.
yeah.
Um, and I did have a job in 30 days, but I was so determined to make it
Wow.
alone. I had like a fire in me that I said,
Yeah.
we're gonna make it. We're going to make it. And it wasn't easy at all.
Of course
I
not.
mean,
No.
my
Yeah.
kids and I, as a family, have gone to a lot of struggles, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it wasn't an easy life or decision, you
Mm-hmm.
know. I don't consider myself also a normal mom
Mm.
because I had to step in into a father role sometimes, or
Right.
be in that masculine energy to be able
Yes.
to be strict and have rules and go out there and work and leave the kids, you
Yeah.
know?
So one of our past conversations, that stuck out of my mind, where you said you had to do the have dual roles and take on the masculinity. Now, and that's what happens when men leave and they leave their families, or they don't lead properly. They leave broken homes, and the women are strong. Women can, they will step into that role, and they have. I know women who have. Um, Many of my family who have had taken on that role because they are forced to. That's not their natural position or role, but like you said, you got to do what you got to do.
Yes.
So tell me about more of the masculinity role that you took on.
Well, just having to go to work, make all the decisions, you know? Sometimes as a woman, like I also want to be nurtured, and I also want to be like not making big decisions, you know?
Yeah.
Like I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
deal with certain things
Right.
that I have no choice. I have to face, and
Yeah.
I have to deal with it on my own.
Yeah.
And those things are very it's just hard to
Mm-hmm.
have so much on your plate. Every time I look back now, I'm like, I don't even know how I did it, like with
Yeah.
3 kids and owning, a business and juggling 20
Right.
things at once.
Right.
Obviously, there were a lot of nights that I cried myself to sleep. There
Mm-hmm.
are a lot of nights that my kids saw me crying, and that,
Of
because I was
course.
stressed financially,
Right.
like what am I gonna do next month,
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Yeah.
um I some of the things I couldn't give my kids, that their
Mm-hmm.
friends had. I gave them everything, that I could to
Right.
live a decent life.
Right.
Something that struck me was reading online that 70% of
Mm-hmm.
the kids of single moms end up in jail
Mm.
or on the streets. 70%, like the
Wow.
stats,
That's
that's a big
incredible.
number.
Yeah.
That's a big
That's
number,
too big.
you know? And I remember, I'll never forget that night. I said, no, my kids are not going to be part of a staff.
Yeah.
So that's why I also ventured into real estate, because at the same
Hmm.
time, it was giving me the opportunity to kind of be a mom and work, and, like, instead of
Hmm.
having to commute or leave 10 hours a day,
Right.
I feel like I was very present all the time. Um, but yeah, I mean, it has been challenging. I
Yeah.
feel now that they're older, you kind of see the results of something, that was very, very difficult. But I also still stand by to where why I'm sharing this, because if you are not in a healthy relationship,
Hmm.
or if there's abuse, or
Hmm.
there's just not a healthy relationship for you or your kids, because I also, when I talk to women, they're afraid. They're
Yeah.
afraid to leave,
Yeah.
and they're afraid to leave, one, because they're afraid to be alone,
Hmm.
two, because of status, or financially,
Yeah. Of
like,
course.
they don't know how to work, or they don't want to work.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I'll lose the car I'm driving, and the house I'm
Hmm.
living in, the big house. A lot
Yeah.
of women, that they don't want to deal with those things, so they rather stay, even
Yeah.
though they're miserable
Right.
or being abused, whatever. They
Yeah.
just learn to deal with it. And yeah, and I feel, even if you're don't have a lot of material stuff, and there are ways, I think, where there's God and there's faith, and you have the determination,
Hmm.
there's ways that we don't know how, but they all fall into place, and there's always something happens that, it's not an easy road,
Right.
but there is a way to change your life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And to add to that, if as I sit across from you here, you're very well put together, beautiful woman, strong woman. You raise your kids by yourself. You have a successful business. You're a hustler. You got to be a hustler in real estate. You got
Yes.
it's part of the business. You got to be hustling. You got to be chasing leads. You got to be closing contracts, and everywhere at every point. And like you said, you made a decision not to have your kids become one of those statistics. Now I got to get back to men now. Man, if this woman's husband from the first marriage, if he would have recognized that, if he would have been in alignment with God's purpose for marriage, submitting to Jesus, and the man submitting to Jesus, and the woman submitting to the man, look what a powerful woman a partner you would have been. I mean, you would have brought that, like I said, the drive and the I mean the earnings, and what a wonderful family you would have had, and what a wonderful partner you would have been if the man would have been just the leader that he was created to be.
Right.
Just the leader that he was created to be. Because women are to be, um, they're here to help. They're here. They have wonderful qualities, um, different than men, strength and wisdom and insight. They have all that.
Love.
Love,
I
compassion.
feel like women, we put the warmth in a home. We make a house a home.
Absolutely.
I'm a strong believer that also society has changed, like, and men no longer now know how to be men, and it's okay. Like, a man supposed to be the leader of the family, the
Right.
protector, the provider, the leader.
Hmm.
And it's okay as a woman to be a follower, to be submissive in the right in the
Right.
right way.
Right. Not by putting his thumb on you and holding you
Yeah.
down and holding you back. But a man who is in God's alignment with marriage, and his wife is submitted to him, and he's submitted to the Lord, there's a divine intervention, a divine purpose that transcends the marriage.
Yes.
And when you're in alignment, and I always talk about that, being in alignment, it's a beautiful thing. And most people can't get there, and they won't get there because of their generational trauma, or their culture says I gotta be machismo, and the woman, I make all the decisions. That's just not, that doesn't work, and that's not the way it should be. And it's time for men to turn that around and really realize what God has created in a woman, and to respect, admire, to cherish. and honor that.
Yes.
So you have built a business, you raised kids. What are you in the dating scene now? Are you looking like? I know we talked about this a little bit, but are you actively out there? Or are you open to something? Or
I not sure at the moment. I mean, I've tried. I definitely tried.
mm-hmm.
Honestly, to be frank, I didn't think when I got divorced at 33 that I would be still single,
Mm-hmm.
at 47.
Yeah,
I was like, no, I'm going to get married soon. That didn't happen. I understand why. I mean, I was a young single mom with three kids.
yeah,
Most people want you for themselves at least the
mm-hmm.
weekends, or they want to come over,
Mm-hmm.
and that kind of didn't agree with me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I get that part, but as you get older, like you now have more, your list of what the checkbox, changes. Like
Yeah,
where I'm now is I've always believed in destiny, and I always believe that when someone's for you, like,
mm.
I mean, I've tried. I'm not telling you I've tried the apps, and it's not. I'm very particular. I don't want to say picky. I'm very particular. Um, and I'm also used to being by myself, so I don't need the constant
Mm-hmm.
validation or constant
Mm-hmm.
presence of someone.
Yeah,
Now that my kids are older and almost, an empty nester, or they're out of the house a lot, and I do spend a lot of time by myself.
mm-hmm.
Just now, I'm starting to feel like, oh my God, it would be nice to be with someone.
Mm.
But then
Okay.
again, when that maybe is a possibility, I'm like, oh, never mind. Oh,
what's
they're like, someone sent me a meme like, I want to be in a relationship. Yeah, but for that you have to date. What date? It's like, and it's so hard. Like, again, the values of man now, obviously, my priorities have changed. I want a
right?
man that follows God and believes in God and
Of
puts him
course.
first.
Yeah.
Because if God is in there, like, I feel the relationship is going to be what God created a relationship, a man and a
Yeah.
woman.
Right.
So I want someone that believes in God. Throughout the life, and I had fall, get a few difficult where I felt to where I just felt lost and
Mm-hmm.
like, what now? Like, what do I do now? Like, what do I do with my life? I felt lost, confused. I had never had those feelings,
Mm.
but
The kids are out now.
well, almost out. Like one foot out, one foot in. Like,
Okay.
but they're never, they're hardly ever home. So I
Okay.
spend a lot of time by myself. So
Okay.
through all the trials, I had to learn to get closer to God and
Mm.
put my faith and really trusting your trust and letting
Yeah.
go. And I believe he has someone out there for me. Like
Absolutely.
that
Yeah.
sometimes I feel like, well, I'm not trying, but I feel like God is the most powerful being in
Yeah.
the universe,
Absolutely.
and I don't care if I live in the desert. If he has
Yeah.
someone for me, he's gonna reveal him to me.
Absolutely.
That's what I pray. I'm like, I wish I was right now, like, in a steady, stable
Yeah.
relationship, doing fun things, or having
Yeah.
company, having someone to spend time with.
Right.
Sometimes I do ask, why God, why am I still single? Or maybe sometimes I said, maybe I'm gonna stay single. I don't know, but I have to keep trusting.
Got it. Got it. So a couple of things you said there as we're getting closer to the end here. To meet people, you got to date. So you made that face. Tell me about your attitude towards dating, and is it is it hard being independent and taking on both those roles as mother and father to fall into that role of okay, if I'm gonna date a man, then it's gonna be under God's alignment for eventually marriage. Do you struggle with that?
Um, yes, right now I feel it still gives me anxiety. Um, I am like scared to death because I've obviously chosen wrong, and I never want to
Oh,
be in
okay.
that place again. I don't want to be hurt. Now it's like you become afraid of opening up or like loving
Mm,
someone
yeah.
because you know how they say when you love someone they have the power to hurt you now,
Yeah.
and that's the risk that we all have to take.
Right.
But right now, um, yeah, I feel kind of a little fearful.
Okay. It's natural. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
natural. Fearful.
yeah, because I just feel like I've been hurt a lot, and
Mm-hmm.
I don't complain. I've learned. There's
Yeah.
lessons to be learned. Everything happens for a reason.
Right.
Before I used to, why God, why? But
Mm-hmm.
now I say, I don't know God. Like,
Yeah. It's in His time.
yeah,
His time. I know you want it right now, but maybe testing you. Maybe testing you. You know, you gotta wait, or I don't know. I mean, that sounds
maybe I'm becoming, or He's working. I'm becoming who He needs me to be for that person.
absolutely there. It is. You said it better than I did. Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah. Back now.
I I do like obviously someone Hispanic
Uh-huh.
because I like our culture. I like I love music.
Mm-hmm.
Love music, so I want to be able to listen to music and just have the same. We can talk
Yeah.
in Spanish or talk in English
Mm.
and things like that. Someone very intelligent. I have an admiration for intelligent men.
Mm.
I like to have very, intellectual conversations
Right.
that are meaningful,
Uh-huh.
not just like small talk or
Empty. Yeah.
that you're gonna bore me. Because if I'm not interested, I lose. Like my mind is already like. If you can keep my interest, and I feel
Right.
like I'm learning from you,
Oh, okay. Okay.
intelligence is very very important to me. Someone that is uh, successful, and a
Mm.
family man, and
Yeah.
like and learn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good. Yeah. And you're there with you with salvation.
I I want to say I think I want to, but I don't know if I'm ready. Like I don't know if but again, I feel like the right person is gonna make me feel ready. Like I'm not the
Mm-hmm.
right person is not gonna make me feel anxious. It's not gonna take my peace.
Good. Yeah.
And those are things that when someone takes your peace or gives you anxiety, you can't sleep,
Yeah.
it gives you uncertainty, like those are not good signs. So
Turn
I
around. Turn
feel
around.
that
Yeah.
even though I might say no, I feel like once the person, if they appear in my life and
Mm-hmm.
I get those feelings of peace and just come, like you feel home, you feel safe,
Yeah.
that's when I'll know it's a good thing.
Good. Good. Well, you've had a what a story you have, you know, and that's why I wanted to have you on this podcast again to get your message out about being a single mom and the trials you've been through, the pain, the suffering you've been through, and I mean, you made it. You're here. You can look back and say, wow, I did that, and I got through it. And I want to congratulate you, and I want to say I'm proud of you for being who you are and being who you've become, and your belief in Christ and how God's working in your life. I applaud you for all that. I
Thank
applaud
you.
you, and I hope someone who is watching this can hear something in your story that they gravitate to and resonate with, and it encourages them and gives them hope.
Yes.
There's always hope. God always has hope for us. It's never hopeless. It may feel that way, but when you lean into Him and lean into His Word,
Yeah.
you can make it. And come,
And years like I have
yeah,
kids, yeah,
yeah,
some assessing mom
yeah.
the show going have
Those months go.
kind of pride
Yeah,
into my
yeah. Hopefully, you're a valued guest, and I wish you all the best, and we'll stay in contact.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thank you.